All right, class, good evening and welcome to today's UTME lecture. And remember last week, I was able to look at the sentence types in the aspect of the structure of a sentence. So we consider sentence type according to structure, and we're able to look at the simple sentence, we're able to look at the compound sentence, we're able to look at the complex sentence, even compound complex sentence, and multiple sentence. So these are all the categories that we're able to consider during last week's lecture. And it's going to be a continuation of where I stopped in last week, and you can actually make reference to the lecture. And remember, today we'll be looking at sentence type according to function or sentence type according to meaning, all right? Now this refers to the different classification of sentence according to the function that it performs or according to the meaning of such sentence. All right, so now here we're looking at sentence type according to function or meaning. All right, so that's what we'll be considering. And under this particular topic, we have what is known as declarative sentence, which we would also consider in details. Then we have interrogative sentence, which is also very important. Then the third aspect, we look at imperative sentence. And then finally, we'll look at exclamatory sentence. All right, class. So let's consider this one after another. So the first aspect we'll be discussing today is called the declarative sentence. And what do we refer to as declarative sentence? From the word to declare means to make a statement, all right? That is to proclaim something. That's what it means. So most times when you declare or you proclaim something, what that refers to is a declarative statement or a declarative sentence. And remember, how this is said is that it has a way of trying to give a slight instruction or trying to instruct or command somebody to do something or to perform an action. Like when you say, for example, I am a student. Do you understand? That's declarative. And what makes it declarative is more like you're saying final. It can be argued. It can be fought against. When you say, I am a student, it is so definite. It is so declarative. So most times when we make statements like that, we do not know the meaning. All right? But then this is a class which would expose you to all of these important techniques. And remember, in the UTME, some sentences might be outlined and you may be asked to identify the sentence type to which each of them falls into. And your understanding of those particular concepts will guide you very well on how to easily identify sentences specifically according to their function or their meaning. And like I said, let's take a definition for each of those concepts in detail. What is a declarative sentence? A declarative sentence, helps to proclaim or declare, a particular event or situation. All right, so that's the concept today. So when you make a proclamation or when you declare a particular event or situation, what you're basically using in that essence is a declarative sentence. And remember I told you that declarative sentences are mostly used by people unknowingly. Now, another thing again is a declarative sentence can occur either in a positive form or in a negative form. And what makes it positive? Now, it is only positive when it doesn't take the not. That's the negative fillers, such as not or never. Do you understand? So that's what makes it positive. And what makes it negative is the fact that it accommodates not and never. Are we good? Now, let's take an instance. We said the declarative sentence can either be what? Positive or negative. Can either be positive or negative, okay? And I already explained to you that what makes it positive is the fact that it does not contain any not or never. And what makes it negative is the fact that it accommodates not or never, all right? So now let's take an example. So we have here, e.g., if I have, I am a student of the university, okay? So we're just speaking any particular university. So I am a student of the university. So what you're saying is that you're a part of that particular institution. That's what you're saying. And this is a declarative sentence, a positive declarative sentence. And what happens is that it's trying to affirm a particular notion. And what's the notion? Trying to know whether you're a student of the institution or not. But then when you state by saying, I am a student of the university, that already affirms, that confirms, or that asserts to the notion that it is not doubtful, unarguably, all right? Because that's a declarative sentence. One thing I love about declarative sentences is that they are very, very definite. They are direct, okay? When it is uttered, you have no evidence, you have no possibility. The contingency for you to say no is never granted. Okay, so that's what you need to understand about the definite and declarative sentences. Most times you call it definite or declarative sentences. So here, I can turn that to a negative declarative sentence in the sense that I can have, I am not a student of the university. Can you see that now? So what happens? You're stating clearly that you're not. Okay, so most declarative sentences are basically statements. Yes, I also need you to understand that. Most declarative sentences are basically statements. And what makes them statements? Because they help to affirm something. They help to tell or to proclaim a particular situation or event or even notion. All right, now look at, I am not a student of the university. So that's you're practically saying it comes in a pragmatic way, action driven. Okay, now we can have as many sentences as possible as you may wish. So here I can speak many languages. I can speak many languages. All right, so this is basically a speaker who affirms that he or she can communicate in so many languages. And that's what makes it declarative. Said, I can speak many languages. All right, and here you have, I am a student of the university. So you can as well turn this particular positive declarative sentence to a negative form. How do you do that? You just basically turn the verb can to cannot. And when you do so, you've actually turned it to a negative declarative sentence. So here you have, okay, I cannot speak many languages. Is that okay? So they come in form of sentences. Most of these usually come in form of sentences. Is that okay? So now we've looked extensively to what a declarative sentence is. Now let's look at what an interrogative sentence will imply. Are we good? So from the word interrogative, what that connotes or what that implies is that it initiates question asking. Okay? It gives you the ability to interrogate, to question, to interject. All right? That's basically what interrogative sentence implies. So interrogative sentences are basically questions. And when we talk about questions in CAC, it can actually come in different forms. And what are those forms? You can have polar questions, which are usually the yes or no questions. Okay? That is, if a question is asked, in your response is either you say yes or you say no. These are usually polar questions. Bipolar, it simply means that they are of two different answer responses and they are wide apart. So it's either you go for the yes answer response or you go for the no answer response too. Okay? So that's why they are considered the polar question. And also remember that for interrogative sentences, as it may be, the question type that we could be considered here as well too can be what is known as tag questions too, which are conversational questions. Can also be implied in this case. Okay, so here we have, that's number 2. Here is number 1, remember. So interrogative sentence helps to question or inquire about a particular event or situation, That is, the essence of the questioning is to try to get more clarification about a particular concept. That's the essence of interrogative sentence. Okay, for instance, if I ask a question, I'm basically asking such question in order to know or gain clarity about a particular concept. That's basically why I'm asking the question. So, and remember that that question will come in form of a sentence. That's what makes it declarative. It will come in form of a sentence. However, it would also take a question. Do you understand that now? So it will come in form of a sentence and it will take a question. And that's why I said the interrogative sentence helps to question or inquire about a particular event or situation. Do you understand? So there would always be an event or situation that would necessitate, that would prompt the questioning. That's basically what interrogative sentences focus on. And remember, we can have an example. Now, let me also mention to you, just as we have negative declarative sentence and positive declarative sentence, in the case of interrogative sentence too, we also have positive or negative interrogative sentences too. Okay, we have it. It's possible. So let's take an instance. Do you speak French? Can you say that now? Do you speak French? Question mark. Do you speak French? Question mark. What happens? What type of sentence is this? This is called an interrogative sentence. What makes it an interrogative sentence? Because it helps in asking of the question. What question again? Said, do you speak French? All right, that's basically a question. That's an interrogative sentence. An interrogative sentence tries as much as possible to ask questions, okay, to know whether the speaker, that is the person talking at that present time, understood the clarifications or the concepts. So that's the essence of the question. Do you speak French? Is a question that is being asked. Now, it can as well be turned to the negative form, okay, where you have, don't you speak French? Okay, don't you speak French? Can you say that now? Don't you speak French? Question mark. Can you say that? So, don't you speak French, which is the negative aspect of the interrogative sentence. Don't you speak French? That's to ascertain if the person could possibly express him or herself in French language. That's the essence. Now, we'll really move. So I remember that sometimes interrogative sentences could take WH questions. All right, I need to explain that to you. Most times, interrogative sentences could take WH questions. And just on a very rare note, would you see interrogative sentences taking polar questions and the rest? But most time, it takes WH questions. And let's take a look at most of the WH questions. Now here, we have WH questions. And what are examples of the WH questions? Now, by what WH questions, it means that we can actually coin words that suggest questions in English language. We can coin words that suggest questions in English language. And what are those words? Let's see. Now, we have what, there is why, there is where, can you see? There is which. We equally have who, there is whom, there is whose. Can you see that? Okay, so there is when. Okay, let's see. That is equally part of it. Don't get it confused. That is part of it. And what makes that to belong to this category? Because some of you might ask, but that doesn't begin with WH, all right? So in the collection, that fits into the WH question. Even how, H-A-W, fits into the WH question. Because many of you might ask, but how begins with H, not with WH. So how come is how part of the WH question? So in the basic rule of WH question, all right, there are irregular words such as how, W-H-O-W, which are part of the WH questions, okay? And the reason they are part is that they help to explain more questions that the WH could not cover. For example, if I want to talk about manner in the WH, I can't find a perfect WH word that describes it. So what we did was to invent a particular word that perfectly describes it, and such word, which is H-O-W, now fits into the WH so that it could perfectly describe the manner at which an action was performed. I hope this is understood now. So that, and then we have how. So how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we have 10. So what do we need to do now? We need to try as much as possible to identify most of these WH words to see how they fit into sentence construction in terms of asking questions. That is, how can you use most of these WH words in question asking? Now, what does what, the first word there, the first WH word, what does it imply? Okay? Now, anytime you use what, that's W-H-A-T, it is mostly used for identification, to know how something happened or what actually transpired, to try to identify something. Okay? What is that? That is, you're inquiring about how to identify a particular thing. That's the essence of what. That's how word is used, for identification. Okay? Trying to identify or recognize the situation behind an action. So basically, what answers the question for identification. Okay? Then, the next aspect we'll be considering is why, which is WHY. Why? What question type does why answers? So when why is used, the question type that it answers is for reason or the purpose to which an answer is recorded, or to which a particular event or occasion happened. So why is mostly used for reason, or you can call it purpose. That's basically for reason or purpose. So you can see that this specific WH word is only streamlined to the reason behind an action, the purpose behind an action, while the first WH word only answers questions relating to identifying a particular cause of an action, trying to identify the root cause, trying to recognize the root cause of an action. I hope this is understood. Now, we have why, which is basically for reason or purpose. Now, let's look at where as a WH word. What significance does where bear? So it helps to identify the place, or you can call it location. It helps to identify for a place or a location. Now, how about which? Okay, in what context do you use which in expression? Now, remember that which is basically for non-living elements, for non-living things, okay? Yes, you use which in reference to non-living things. An example could be, here you have non-living entity, okay? Non-living entity or non-living things. All right, so, but the major thing that a lot of students tend to do is they try as much as possible to use which, ascribing it to living things. No, which is not mostly ascribed to living thing. It's not ascribed to living thing. Let me give you an instance. I think I overheard, or probably eavesdropped a student reading the Lord's Prayer, and the person said, "Our Father, which art in heaven." All right, what does that indicate? So it means if this person used which to describe our Father, which is a living being, it doesn't collocate, it doesn't conjoin with the rule of grammar, because grammar indicates that which, that's WHIC, should be used for non-living entity, for non-living thing. And then in the context of the Lord's Prayer, which was now used in reference to a human, in reference to a living thing. That's why I'm trying to bring your attention to this. And also, we have who. In what context do we use who? What significance does who perform? So, who is used for the subject. You can call it, is mostly used for the subject, and though subject is too grammatical. But when we say subject, what we're talking about is the person who designates the action, the person who performs the action, the person who carries out the action. That's the subject. So most likely, if you ask a question using this WH word, who, what you're practically saying is you want to identify the performer of the action. You want to identify the person, okay, who performs the action. Or sometimes you also want to know an identity. If you say, who are you? In that context, he's not inquiring about whoever that performs an action. He's practically inquiring about the identity of the person, and which is quite different from who did this. Okay? So who did this implies that an action has been performed and we're inquiring to identify the performer of such action, which is different from who are you, which is trying to inquire about the identity. So it means that who as well can be used for subject, and that subject covers two scopes. What are those two scopes? The first scope is to identify the person who performs an action, and also to identify an individual or a person. I hope this is clear, class. Now, let's look at whom. How is whom used? Whom is used to identify the receiver of the action. In other words, we can as well say the object, okay, which is the receiver of the action. The person who